Hello and welcome to another part of this chapter sequencing problem. In the previous part we have discussed about sequencing problem and we have said that in sequencing problem there are some jobs which will be processed on some machines and the order of the machines will be given and the processing time for each job on each machine will also be given. So we have to find an optimal sequence of jobs such that if we process the jobs on the machines according as the sequence, then the total elapsed times is minimum. So in this part we shall consider one example having n jobs and 2 machines. So we consider this example which has 6 jobs on 2 machines and the processing times for the jobs on the machines are given in this table. And suppose that the machine order is M1 to M2. That means every job need to be processed on machine M1 first and then on machine M2. Now if it is given that the machine order is M2 to M1, then every job needs to be processed on machine M2 first and then M1. In that case, we have to interchange the two rows of this table. But since the machine order is M1 to M2, so we keep the table unchanged. Now we shall use Johnson's algorithm to find the optimal sequence of jobs. Now there are two parts in this method. In the first part we shall find an optimal sequence of jobs, and in the second part we shall find the total elapsed times and the idle times for the machines. So first let us find the optimal sequence of jobs. So we shall find the optimal sequence of jobs and we shall put the sequence in these boxes. So remember, the jobs are to be processed from the left hand side. So these jobs will be processed first and then this job, and this is the final job which is to be processed on the machine. So let us find the optimal sequence of jobs. Now the rule is that from this table we have to find the minimum element. And if the minimum element appears in the first row for some job, then we shall put that job at the beginning of the table, and if that minimum element appears in the second row of some job, then we shall put the job at the end of the table. Now let us find the minimum element from this table. We can easily find that the minimum element is 2. And it appears at two places, one in the first row for the job J2 and another one is at the second row for the job J4. Then by the rule, since this minimum element appears in the first row for the job J2, therefore we have to put this job J2 at the beginning of the table. So we are putting the job J2 first. Similarly, since this minimum element appears in the second row for the job J4, so by the rule we have to put this job J4 last in the table. So we are putting this job last in the table. So these two jobs are done, so we can discard these two jobs. Now for the remaining jobs, again we shall find the minimum element from this table. We find that the minimum element from this table is 3 and which appears in the first row for J5. So by the rule this job will be put at the beginning of the table since the minimum element appears in the first row. So we are putting the job J5 here at the beginning of the table, means after the job J2, because this is the first job of the table. Now we can discard J5. Now 3 jobs are remaining. Now we find the minimum element from this table and we find that the minimum element is 5, which appears twice, one for J1 and another for J3. Since the minimum element appears in the first row both for the jobs J1 and J3, so there is a tie. So we have to put both the jobs at the beginning of the table since the minimum element appears in the first row. But there is a tie between J1 and J3. both will be put in the beginning of the table, but which one will be put first? That is the question. Since there is a tie, so we have to check the second row or the elements in the second row. So we find two elements which are 10 and 14. So out of this J1 and J3, the job will be put first, for which the element for the second row is maximum. Or in the other word, we know that we can put the job last in the table if the element in the second row is minimum. Here we find that out of these two jobs, these two jobs will be put in these two places. So out of which we find that the element in the second row is minimum for J1, because this is 10 and this is 14. So out of these two spots, this one will be put last. So we shall put J1 here and J3, because the corresponding element in the second row is minimum for J1. Therefore we have to put J3 first and J1. Now it may happen that for some jobs there will be a tie in the second row. In that case we have to check the elements on the first row. If there is a tie between the elements of the second row, then by the rule both the jobs will be put last in the table, out of which we shall put the job first, for which the corresponding element in the first row is minimum. So this is the rule. So now we can discard both J1 and J3. Now the only one spot is remaining and only one job is remaining. So we shall put J6 here. So this is the required optimal sequence of jobs. So the optimal sequence is J2 to J5 to J3 to J1 to J6 to J4. So this is the optimal sequence of jobs, and next we shall find the total elapsed times and the ideal times for the machines. So let us find the total elapsed time and the ideal time for the machines. For that we have to consider this table. Now this table has number of columns and number of rows. The rows are nothing but the sequence of the job. So this is the optimal sequence of job. We have already obtained J2, J5, J3, J1, J6 and J4. Now there are some columns. In the first one is the start time for each job on machine 1 and the end time for the job on machine M1. Next the start time on the machine M2 and end time on the machine M2, and finally idle time for M1 and M2. So we shall compute this table. Now since it is given that every job need to be processed on machine M1 first, then on M2, therefore we have put M1 first and then M2. So let us start. First consider J2. So now this job will start processing on the machine M1 at the 0 time, because at the beginning of the time, so start time is 0. Now the time required to process this job J2 on machine M1 is 2. So the end time for this job on machine 1 will be 2, because this 2 is the required time to process this job on machine M1. Now the next job is J5. Now since the machine M1 takes 2 unit times to process the job J2, therefore the second job, that means job J5, will start processing on machine M1 after 2 units of time, once when the job M2 finished processing on machine M1. So start time for the second job, that means J5, is 2 units of time. Now the job J5 takes 3 units of time to process on machine M1. So the end time for this job will be 2 plus 3, that is 5. Now after the 5 unit of times, the job J5 is finished processing on machine M1. So the start time for the next job will be 5 unit of time, and for the job J3 it takes 5 unit time. So the end time for this job will be 5 plus 5, that is 10. The next job is J1, for which the start time will be 10 and it takes 5 unit of time. So the end time for this job will be 10 plus 5, that is 15. Consider the next job J6. The start time will be 15 and it takes 11 unit of time. So the end time of this will be 15 plus 11, that is 26. And for the final job, the start time is 26 and it takes 8 unit of time to process on machine M1. So the end time will be 26 plus 8, that is 34. Now let us find the idle time for the machine M1. We find that initially the machine do not remain idle because it starts processing the job at 0 time, so the idle time is 0 here. Now in the second row we find that the idle time is 0 because the machine M1 ends processing the job J2 after 2 hours or 2 unit of time and it starts processing the next job at 2 hours. So there is no idle time there, so it is 0. Similarly, in this case also the idle time is 0 because there is no time between the end of the previous job and start of this job. Similarly, we can find that the idle times are all 0 for machine 1. So the start time and end time for all the jobs on machine 1 are obtained. Now let us find the same for machine 2. Now we find that the start time on machine 2 for the job J2 will be 2 because this job J2 can be processed on the machine M2 only after it finished processing on machine M1. Now we find that the job finished processing on machine M1 only after 2 units of time. So the start time for this job on machine M2 will be 2. So here we find that the machine M2 remains idle for the first 2 units of time. So the idle time is 2 units here. Now we find the end time for the job J2. Now J2 takes 4 units of times to process on machine M2. So the end time for this job is 2 plus 4, which is 6. Now we find that the machine M2 is ready to process the second job after 6 unit of times. So it can process the next job after 6 unit of times, and the next job J5 is released by machine M1 after 5 unit of times. So when the machine M2 starts processing the second job, it is already released by the machine M1. So the machine M2 do not remain idle here. So the idle time is 0. Next, the job J5 takes 7 unit of times to process on machine M2. So the end time for J5 is 6 plus 7, which is 13. So the start time for the next job on M2 is 13. And the next job is released by M1 after 10 units of time. So it can immediately start processing the next job. So in this case also the idle time is 0. Now J3 takes 14 units of time to process on M2. So the end time for J3 will be 13 plus 14, which is 27. Now the machine M2 is ready to process the next job after 27 unit of time when the job J1 has been released already by M1, which is after 15 units of time. So in this case also the machine M2 do not remain idle. So the idle time is 0. Now the job J1 takes 10 units of time to process on M2. So the end time for M2 is 27 plus 10, which is 37. So the machine M2 is ready to process the next job after 37 units of time when the next job J6 has been released already by M1 after 26 units of time. So the machine did not remain idle here. And the job J6 takes 10 hours to process on M2. So the end time is 37 plus 10, which is 47. Now the machine M2 is ready to process the final job after 47 unit of time when the final job J4 has been released already by M1. So this job is ready to process on M2 immediately after releasing the previous job. So no idle time here also. So the end time for the job J4 is 47 plus 2, which is 49. Now we find the total elapsed time. Actually this is the total elapsed time, and the total elapsed time is the time to start the first job on the first machine to the end time to process the last job on the last machine, which is 49. So this is the required total elapsed time. Now let us find the idle time for the machines. Now if we look at the first machine, then we find that throughout the process the machine M1 do not remain idle, but the machine M1 finished processing the job after 34 units of time, but the total elapsed time is 49. Therefore the machine M1 remains idle for the last 15 units of time. Similarly for the machine M2, we find that the machine M2 remains idle for total 2 units of time. This is actually the idle time at the beginning of the process. So we write the final answer. This is the optimal sequence of jobs. Total elapsed time is 49 units of time. We have already obtained from the table. Now idle time for M1, that is total elapsed time minus time required to process all the jobs on machine M1, which is 34. So the machine M1 remains idle for the last 15 units of time, and for the machine M2 the idle time is 2 units. Therefore the machine M2 remains idle for the first 2 units of time. We have already obtained this from the table. So that completes the solution. With this we complete this part. In this part we have considered sequencing problem having n jobs on 2 machines. In the next part we shall consider sequencing problem with n jobs on 3 machines. So see you in the next part. Until then, thanks for watching.